From the heartland of America, focused on God, family, and country, the mouthpiece of the Midwest. This is Dale Carter's America.
Well, it's a new day in America, for sure. Welcome to the podcast, our special After the Election podcast episode. Dale Carter with Kurt Wheeler. First of all, let's tell you all the ways that you can be part of Dale Carter's America and help us spread the word.
Yes, welcome. What a day and what a night it was, and we'll talk all about it. Thank you for everyone for tuning in. You can find us on YouTube or Rumble for the video podcast. Make sure that you are subscribed, hit that like button, hit that notification bell so that you are notified when a new podcast comes out. And then you can find the audio-only version on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to follow us on Facebook as well for all the commentary on the election, the exit polls, and the next 4 years are going to be very exciting. So you'll want to be there.
We'll get into all that coming up. We thank Bob Watson for believing and being part of Dale Carter's America. He is at 712 West Main Street in Blue Springs. You can reach him at 816-229-7878. Auto, home, life, anything that you can insure, anything that you care about, Bob Watson is going to be there for you. Bundle and save even more. When you bundle your car and homeowner's insurance, you save big with State Farm. State Farm's the name you know. Bob Watson's been my agent for 30 years. He's been a State Farm agent for 50 years. He knows what he's doing. Bob Watson, State Farm Insurance. Excuse me. I want to go back to the beginning of this podcast because we started it when Joe Biden became president. And it's like, you guys just bag on Biden. You bag on Biden all the time. I want to go back and remind everyone that we started this podcast the day that Joe Biden was inaugurated. When he said, remember his famous words? Give me a chance.
Right.
I'm a normal guy, and I'm going to restore normal. And I said, okay, well, we'll give him a chance and we'll see. And it just so happened that he did not restore normal. He just decided to go on a far left-wing binge and made our border less secure. And I disagreed with him when he was doing his debate, and he said, hey, come on in. We want you all in. Come on in. I disagreed with that. I disagreed with him nixing the Keystone XL pipeline and how he made us energy dependent rather than energy independent that we were. We followed him through his disastrous foreign policy to reinstating the Iran nuclear deal. Iran is closer to a nuclear weapon today than they ever were before, and they're a menace in the Middle East. His disastrous pullout from Afghanistan. So we had legitimate policy issues with Joe Biden. I did not want Donald Trump to be the nominee of the Republican Party. I was pretty clear about that. Kurt, you were a Trump guy from the beginning. And I went so far as to say, if Trump is our nominee, we will lose this election. Boy, was I wrong. And I own that. And I do own that. Because, and this is a place you were wrong, because you said this was going to be weeks and weeks and we were never going to know.
100%.
And we knew early on. This was an old-fashioned country ass-whooping that Donald Trump put on Kamala Harris. I mean, you know, he's going to win the popular vote. He's going to win the Senate. He's going to win the Electoral College. And that trifecta has not happened since Ronald Reagan did it in 1988. And we're probably going to get the House as well. So this is a new day in America, and there's going to be a lot of talk about how it happened, why it happened, and whose fault it is, and we might as well dig into that right now. So you were with it last night. I did what I did in 2016. I went to bed. I took an Ambien. I said, I'm going to wake up, and we're going to see what happened. And just like in 2016, when I woke up, the number's different, because when I woke up in 2016, the crawl across the screen said, Donald Trump, 45th President of the United States. Nobody thought that was going to happen. The betting money was on Hillary Clinton, and it was like, oh, shit, he won. Okay, so I did the same thing, and I thought maybe you were right. So when I went to bed, I thought, well, you know, it's going to be really, really close. The pollsters say this is such a tight race, right? And then you got all these battleground states, and I wake up and I see Donald Trump, 47th President of the United States. So get out your history books. This has only happened twice in American history. Grover Cleveland the first time, and now Donald J. Trump, who will be the 47th President of the United States. Kurt's pulled up that beautiful map that shows all the red. I think he won every swing state, didn't he?
Yeah, Michigan has yet to be called. Nevada and Arizona have yet to be
called.
All
three leaning red, though.
Yep, leaning red. He won Pennsylvania. He won Georgia. He won Wisconsin, and that did it.
So, do you think Kamala Harris might be kicking herself now for a lot of reasons? One of them might be not taking Shapiro as her vice president and taking Tim Walz from the very, very safe state of Minnesota?
Yeah, I was talking to my dad about that earlier, actually, because my family's from PA and they live in Bucks County, which Trump flipped. And that was like Bucks County is like the swing county in the swing state of Pennsylvania. Pretty important place. That's where Trump did his McDonald's stunt a couple weeks ago, was like 10 minutes from where I grew up. But he was saying that too, and I've heard that from other people in PA that, you know, they really needed to win PA, and Josh Shapiro probably would have gotten him over the line with that, and he wasn't picked. So
yeah, I just, my own gut feeling tells me that, first of all, the media completely blew this. We're going to get into that a little bit later on. The pollsters completely blew this because the sentiment in the biggest part of this country was it was a bait and switch with Joe Biden. He sold that he was going to come in and be normal. He went hard left and did a lot of things that nobody wanted him to do, you know, like electric cars. You're not going to be able to drive a gas-powered car. Some people who voted for him went, what the fuck is he talking about? You know, and then they went into, you can't have gas appliances. You can't have a gas water heater, a gas range and all that. And it's like the anger out there was growing. The economy was sinking. And I know that they were trying to sell that abortion was the biggest issue, but Donald Trump is going to be the president. And I don't think he cares about any of that stuff. I think he cares about exactly what he's talking about, Kurt. He wants to fix the border, fire up the economy, and solve our problems overseas.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably in that order. I talked to our big boss here in the building, who I don't think he would mind me saying this, is a gay male who's married to a man. And he told me, all I care about is he doesn't screw with my rights. When has he ever said that he would screw with gay rights? He's never said that.
Right.
He's got friends who are gay. You know, he's worked with people who are gay. This is a guy who doesn't care about any of that stuff. All he cares about is firing up business. And did you see that the Dow this morning opened up 1,300 points?
Yeah, everything's up. Stock market's up. Crypto's up. So
you just get the feeling that America's been kind of sitting on this, waiting to see what was going to happen, and now business is going to unleash. And I think that's great for America.
Yeah.
Instead of like worrying about which freaking pronoun we're going to use, now we've been unleashed. We can go about the business of America. We can get back to being energy independent, which I think will happen very quickly. I think very quickly he'll have executive orders that take care of the border. There won't be any pussyfooting around about that. Yeah, we had a bill in Congress, but you didn't pass it. He's going to be like, I'm going to put my Donald J. Trump on this, and we're going to go back to remain in Mexico. We're going to seal that damn border, and then we're going to start kicking people out of this country.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, man, I mean, there's so much to say. First of all, I mean, can we just up top?
Yeah. We can do that.
This is just crazy. I mean, it's still setting in for me, honestly. And it's not all sunshine and roses. You know, we unfortunately, Amendment 3 in Missouri did not go the right way, and we can talk about that later. But just the fact of what happened with the presidential election last night, it's still setting in. And I really do believe, not to get too deep or anything, but I really do believe it's divine intervention. I believe God is at work here. You know, God showed mercy on our country last night, and he gave the American people the strength to go out and do what was necessary in order to at least somewhat save our republic. And it's huge. It's massive.
Yeah.
It's a historic event that we will remember for the rest of our lives. And it's just proven even more than it already was proven that this guy, Donald John Trump, is a singular figure in American history. There's nobody like him, has never been anybody like him, and there never will be anyone like him again in politics. The guy was shot in the face. He was prosecuted. They tried to throw him in jail. They threw the book at him. They did everything they could to stop this guy. And even, you know, him getting shot in the ear. I mean, I see that as divine intervention too. He turned his head a quarter of
just the right second.
You know, 1 degree, 2 degrees at the last second, and got grazed in the ear instead of his head getting blown off on live TV. And that to me was a mandate, you know, from God that he was meant to win. And I was cautiously optimistic the whole time, but you were right when you said earlier. I mean, I for sure did not think that we were going to have an election result today, and the fact that we do just is
it's a mandate.
Testament to the mandate that from the American people. They can't bitch and moan about the Electoral College. He's going to win the popular vote by 5 million, probably, and we're not going to see ever again a blowout like we did, back in the 80s with Reagan's second term, where I think he won 49 states. But
he did.
As far as modern presidential elections, this is as big of a blowout as you could possibly see for Donald J. Trump, and it's a really, really astounding historical event. It's very significant.
Well, 2 points I would make there, and I agree with you on God being involved in all of this. And I talked about this on my show this morning, because you got to remember 48% of the country went for Kamala Harris for whatever reason. So we got to bring this country back together again. Yeah. And Trump said that that's what he's committed to doing, is bringing the country back together. And I think he'll do that in a way that Joe Biden couldn't or wouldn't do. So the way that I couch this with my listeners is, when something bad happens in your life, you're a young guy, things are going to happen in your life that are going to go against you. And at that point, you stop, you have a moment, of quiet, a little prayer, and you ask God, what lesson is it you're trying to teach me here? Because there is a lesson in every negative thing that happens to you. What is the lesson? I want to be still. I want to hear what you're saying. And then when things go your way, like last night went for 51% of the country, that's when you thank God for being in your life. And when the good things happen, you're very thankful. And when the bad things happen, you get reflective and you ask, what is the message here? Mm-hmm. And you mentioned Ronald Reagan, who was the first president I ever voted for. We had something back then, and this is long before you, but the economy really sucked under Jimmy Carter, and they came up with a term for it: the misery index.
Right.
And the misery index was pinging, and that's why Ronald Reagan won. And I think ultimately it was the economy that, people going to the grocery store and seeing prices go up and up and up, seeing the gas prices go up and up and up, the total insecurity, the chaos in the cities with crime and all that. And so, they didn't really talk about the misery index in the media because, well, let's face it, they were shilling for Biden and then Harris. But we had a misery index in this country, and today you feel an unleashing away from the misery into joy. And I think those people who were sold a bill of goods by the media, they're going to get that, and they're going to come around, because this guy is not a Nazi. He's not Hitler. He's not the worst thing ever. There will be more elections. He's just the guy that wants to get some shit done, and he wants to fix the mess that Joe Biden created in his wake. So that's where we are today, in my view.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as we've talked about before, now that he has won, it's going to be very important for us to hold his feet to the fire and hold him accountable for being America first, for being good for the economy, doing all the things that he's promised throughout both campaigns, and including the things in his first term as president that he maybe didn't get to, or as much as we would have liked. But
well, COVID was his fault, right? That's what they wanted us to believe.
Right.
The China virus and all that.
It came from China.
Yeah. I mean, he had that, dropped into his presidency. So let's hope nothing like that happens moving forward. And then in 4 years, guess what he'll do? He's going to leave.
Right.
And the bench for Republicans for presidential politics is so stacked. Where do you go? Yeah. J.D. Vance, you got Ron DeSantis down in Florida. You got Vivek. You have Donalds. I mean, Tim Scott. There's a lot of people to choose from. It's such a deep bench. And the Democrats are going to have probably Gavin Newsom, probably Josh Shapiro. I think Kamala Harris is done, don't you?
Probably. Yeah, probably.
All right.
But, and I think you mentioned this too, which is very important. I think we have especially towards the end, these last few months, we've seen a coalition developing around the Trump campaign, unlike anything we've seen in maybe 100 years. And that is very significant. I mean, RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, even Joe Rogan, like last night he was up on stage giving his speech, and he went on prompter for a little bit, and then he went off prompter for a little bit, and he was just shouting out people. He had Dana White up there and came up and gave us a little speech. He had Bryson DeChambeau, the U.S. Open golf champion, up there, who we love, or who I love at least. But just politically speaking, he's really built this coalition of a very forward-thinking movement, especially with RFK, talking about making America healthy again and all this stuff. And there's a huge opportunity here, not only for us and for the Trump campaign to make real policy changes that are good for America, but to build a new coalition and expand on the political movement that he's already started into this new thing that will carry on beyond Trump's term and into the future of the 21st century.
Well,
and
he's changed the Republican Party completely. I mean, it's now the working class party. Blacks and Hispanics voted for Trump more than they've ever voted for any Republican. And I love that. We need to grow that groundswell because, let's face it, the Democrats have been selling blacks and Hispanics a bill of good for 60 years. And finally the bill came due. They still, a majority still support the Democrats, but it's eating away.
Right.
More and more are coming to the Republican Party because that's where the answers are. That's where the solutions are. So, anything else on the presidency before we move on?
No, I would just say, I think we should show grace, to our opponents. There's a lot of people out there that are very nasty people, and who, would like to see us fail or die or, be kicked out of the country.
Or in jail.
And I think for the majority of people, especially like private citizens, people that complain on Facebook or, bitch and moan, they'll get what's coming to them. And it's not our job at this point to dunk on them. I will make an exception for that, which is for the media. I do think that the media deserves to be dunked on.
And hold on to that. That's later.
Yeah. Well, exactly. It's not today, because today is just, for me, it's just, I'm still taking in the moment, really. It's
a wonderful moment.
Taking in what has happened and really appreciating the significance of this moment. But I think maybe next week what we can do is we can pop some popcorn and we can just watch today's episode of The View from beginning to end.
Can you imagine the ratings? Popcorn. Can you imagine the ratings? It's going to be huge today.
They're going to get more ratings because, last night it was all over Twitter. It's like, I've never watched The View before, but tomorrow I'm tuning in.
Yeah.
So that's going to be great. But.
And in the closing days, Kamala Harris had like a closing argument. She said Donald Trump, when he's sitting behind the Resolute desk, is going to have an enemies list that he's going to go after, and I'm going to get some stuff done. She got that backwards because the Democrats have had their enemies list, and they've used lawfare to put people in jail and or go after Trump in deep blue districts. And Kamala broke it. I mean, if she was going to fix it, why didn't they do it for the last 3.5 years? And why did they do some of the stuff they did in the first place? So I think she got that backwards. And I think America has a really good bullshit detector. Yeah. And it was like, fool me once. Okay, you got me there. Fool me twice. Shame on you. We're not, or shame on me. I got it backwards. Shame on you the first time. Shame on me the second time. And
you really nailed that one.
Thank you. That's not going in the promo, by the way. But the bullshit detector was definitely there.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on.
And one more thing. I'm sorry. I just looked this up because I wasn't sure. Trump spoke to the nation last night. Kamala did not. She canceled her event. She canceled her speaking engagement. Yeah. She still hasn't conceded, as far as I'm aware. She's scheduled to address the nation at 6 p.m. Eastern time today.
Well, she can't win. The outstanding, if she got all of them, and 3 of the 4 remaining states are right-leaning, if she got all of the remaining electoral votes, she would not win. So this thing is over, and she needs to concede. And, Joe Biden has said he will show up to the inauguration no matter who wins. I still think Donald Trump should have gone to the inauguration last time. That's a great tradition that separates us from the banana republics of this world, that we have a peaceful transfer of power, and that transfer of power will happen on January 20th. Oh, by the way, on January 6th, it will be Kamala Harris overseeing the joint session of Congress to announce that Donald J. Trump will be the next president. And won't that be a delicious moment?
It sure will.
Speaking of delicious, What a great segue. Funhouse Pizza, Jim Dingman's organization there. They're in Lee's Summit and in Blue Springs. 7 Highway in Blue Springs, 50 Highway in Lee's Summit. Delicious pizza. He hosted our listener/viewer appreciation party that we did last week. That was a lot of fun. The pizza was fantastic because it's always fantastic. If you've got a celebration of your own, whether it's your family celebration, you got a team celebration, maybe it's a work thing, he'd love to host you there with fantastic pizza, cold beverages, and, a lot of people brought their kids to our event last week.
Yeah.
They might be questioning that because of some of the language that happened during the event, but they've got like all kinds of games and things that the kids can play on.
Yeah. I was, right when we walked in, I was like about to make some terrible joke directed in your direction, probably about, like something nasty. And,
I'm sure.
And I just my mouth was about to open, and then I looked over and there's kids sitting at the table. I'm like, and it is a family friendly event, of course, so bring your kids, and I'll behave myself, I promise.
All right. Midwest GI Health and Wellness. Of course, we had Dr. Taramina on with a special segment last week because he had just done my colonoscopy. I'm not just talking about this stuff, people. This is stuff that you need to get done. If you're 45 or older, you need to get your colonoscopy. And I've heard all the excuses. Oh, there's no colon cancer in my family. Well, there isn't until there is, right?
Right.
Somebody's got to be the first. And we're seeing so many young people, relatively speaking, who get colon cancer, blow off getting the colonoscopy, and once it's full-blown colon cancer, good luck. It's going to be a tough putt from then on. If you get the colonoscopy, and the prep really wasn't that big a deal. That was the thing that held us back in the past. The prep was really easy. And I went in, and, you take a nap for like 15 minutes, you wake up, and he says, hey, everything's fine. And if you've got polyps, they send those off, and catching it early is the key with colon cancer. So Midwest GI Health and Wellness, schedule that colonoscopy at 816-836-2200. Midwest GI Health and Wellness right there in Lee's Summit. And they do it all one-stop shopping right there in the office. Fantastic.
And I just remembered what I was going to say that I didn't because kids were there, because it was related to your colonoscopy.
Let's hear it.
I was just going to say, hey, how's your asshole? That's all I was going to say.
Well, like I said,
it's better now. It's over now.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Dr. Taramina and I got to know each other pretty well. Actually, I went in there. I'm laying on my side, right, and you got this gown that's like open in the back,
right.
And there's all these women in there, and I'm like, you getting a good view of the moon back there? Because you're a little loopy anyway at that point, right? Yeah. So there you go. Good folks, and both proud to be part of Dale Carter's America. So the presidency goes to Donald Trump. Right now, as we're recording this, he's at 277 electoral votes with, I think it's 4 states that are still out, Nevada, New Mexico. Oh, they've called Alaska, so that would have changed the math. Where's the math right now?
277 to 224.
Okay.
Well, this is just on Yahoo. Let me pull up.
Okay. So Alaska hadn't been called finally, and then you got Michigan and Maine. And Maine does that
here it is again.
different deal with the Electoral College where Trump and Harris both already have 1, and there's 2 to be awarded.
Yeah, and the same with Nebraska as well, I think.
Yeah, they get the 1 extra for
Kamala
Omaha.
won 1 vote from Nebraska, even though they have it read here. Kamala won 1. And
well, that's
Trump
for Omaha. And,
Right.
I'm telling you want to screw with the Electoral College? I doubt they do now. But, I said, why don't we do it by district? That would put California in play, would put New York in play, would put Illinois in play. You want to play that game? Maybe we can play that game. And it'll be interesting now because Donald Trump took the Senate with him. And all of the races have not been called yet. But there is a chance, Kurt, that we could be looking at 55 Republicans in the Senate.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
I think it's at 51 or 52 right now.
Right. Tester lost in Montana, so he beats Tester. Tester was a 3-term Democrat who sold himself to Montana as one of those moderate guys. Well, in Montana, they're pretty smart, and they looked at how often Tester was voting with Joe Biden, especially on things that added trillions of dollars to our debt, and they decided to try Sheehy. So we're at 52-42 with some races left to be decided.
Yep. So far, Montana, Ohio, and West Virginia flipped.
Right. So Ohio, that's what's his name? Or West Virginia, that's what's his face?
I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't either. The Mr. Moderate Democrat. Well, he's out. The Republican governor of West Virginia is in, and Sherrod Brown is out in Ohio. So there you go. So the Republicans had to hold on to their seats, and the Democrats couldn't lose any. And so the Democrats are losing seats. They've lost 3 so far, and there could be more damage coming.
Freaking paywall, man.
And the House, we don't have that in yet because it's all 435 seats in the House that are up. And so it'll be a minute before we know that. But wouldn't it be interesting if the Republicans took the House, the Senate, and also the House, the Senate, and the White House?
Yep.
What are you pulling up now?
I'm looking for the guy, and you're saying West Virginia?
Yeah. The senator in West Virginia.
Glenn Elliott?
No.
Well, that's the one. That's the one that was up, I believe. So maybe the other one. Because on the ballot was Jim Justice, Republican, Glenn Elliott, Democrat.
Right. Hang on a second. Edit. So it's,
I don't think Joe Manchin was up for a vote though.
No, he wasn't. He stepped down. He was not going to run.
Right.
This was an
Okay.
open
Yes.
seat. Yeah, open
yes.
seat. Okay.
Correct.
So we're back with you. Joe Manchin is who I was trying to think of.
Yeah, so he
West
didn't
Virginia.
lose. He stepped down, and then 2 other people ran in the Republican one.
So now that we're going to have a pretty big majority in the United States Senate, maybe we should get rid of that pesky filibuster. What do you think? Let's get rid of the filibuster. And you know what we should really do is add more justices to the Supreme Court. Can we do that? Let's get that number up to about 17.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump will appoint them all.
It's like the minimum wage, $15 an hour. Why not $50 an hour?
So
why not 27 justices?
Do you think they'll want to do that now?
I doubt it.
Probably not. And that pesky old, electoral college. We don't need that anymore, do we? I'll bet they want to keep the electoral college now. It's funny because one of the other things that Kamala was saying that was just so wrong is that Trump wants to trash the Constitution. I talk about projection. If there's a finger pointed at you, there's 3 more coming back, right? If I point at Kurt, there's 3 more coming back at me. And they talk about the Constitution. They don't like the Senate. They'd like to abolish the Senate. I'll bet they really want to abolish the Senate now because it's going to be in Republican hands, okay? They don't like the First Amendment. They were going to have, what was it? Not truth squads, but disinformation squads.
Yeah.
Now, who was going to chair that, by the way? They don't like the Second Amendment. They'd like to take all your guns away from you. They say they don't, but everything they point toward is more gun legislation. So they're the ones who don't want to honor the Constitution. I think Donald Trump and the Republicans support the Constitution and want to enforce the Constitution.
Yeah, they're at least on the right side of the issue. They may not be perfect, but there's a clear choice there.
And we're going to have a lot to talk about on this podcast because one of the things Donald Trump didn't talk about, neither did Kamala Harris, was our $36 trillion debt.
Right.
And the fact that we're adding $2 trillion a year to that debt. I mean, that's something we're definitely going to have to get into, and we will get into it. But it will be much easier to get conservative legislation through if you've got the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. So,
yep.
Although, did you see Adam Schiff won in California?
No.
And I know. We're going to still have to deal with him.
Well, our boy Mark Alford won.
He did.
Josh Hawley won.
As you're getting into local races, yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yep.
All of the incumbents won. Sharice Davids won.
Right.
Emmanuel Cleaver won, although Sean Smith gave him a run for his money.
Yeah. That seems like it happens every time. It's like they give him a run for his money, and then all the Kansas City votes come in, and it's just over.
You know what they say, though? They say that people hate Congress as an institution, but they love their congressperson.
Yeah.
So once you get incumbency, unless you do something really, really bad, like, I don't know, let's say you're Menendez in New Jersey,
right,
and you're cutting side deals with the Egyptians, and you've got gold bars lining your suit. He got away with that the first time, but not the second time. So you've really got to do something there. So, so good to see Mark Alford. Mike Kehoe is going to be the governor of Missouri, replacing Mike Parson. That was not the guy that we went with, but I think he'll do a great job. So we congratulate Mike Kehoe. Hawley, you mentioned that, right?
Yep.
Hawley got reelected over Lucas Kuntz. It's funny because Tracy, who sometimes subs in on the podcast, She told me when she voted yesterday, she voted the same time Lucas Kuntz was voting. So he was like right next to her as she's coloring in the circle for Josh Hawley.
Right.
It was a little bit of an awkward moment there.
Well, I think the Lucas Kuntz thing pretty much died after he shot that guy on the gun range.
That was probably it. Okay, one more little break here for you. Michael Schroer, it's funny because we talked about how the Dow was up so much today because there's an unleashing of all this pent-up business that wants to get done that says, hey, maybe the liberals aren't going to screw with us as much as we thought they were. We can actually get something done because we've got a businessman who's going to be running this country. So Michael Schroer is ready. Rates are going to come down. The real estate market is going to take off, and this is our guy. He comes to every event, and he is a sponsor of this thing, not necessarily because, we're bringing in people to sell houses and stuff. He wants to be part of what we're doing. That's Michael Schroer. So he's your guy. If you're looking to buy your first home, move up to a bigger family home, or the kids are leaving, you want to downsize, he's your guy. You got a piece of property you want to build your dream home on, call Michael Schroer at RE/MAX Heritage in Lee Summit, 816-783-5800. Just show him that you follow what we do on this podcast. I got to tell you, when we get into the section on the media, I think podcasting has made a huge difference in this country because before you only had CNN and MSNBC, Fox News to an extent. They were your voices, ABC, CBS, NBC. But now with Rogan, a little bit of what we're doing, Kurt, I mean, the word is getting out there.
Yeah.
And they can't answer what we're bringing up because there's no logical answer for it. So I'm off track here. But Michael Schroer, he's your guy for real estate. If you wreck your car, there's only one name in the Kansas City Metro you need to know, and that is Dale Reynolds at Dale's Body Shop in Blue Springs. He's been there since 1987, and he's well known in the Kansas City Metro. A lot of the folks on the Kansas side, when the police cars get dinged up, they go to Dale's in Blue Springs. So if you, unfortunately, in the Kansas City area get into a wreck and they say, hey, where are we taking this thing? Dale's Body Shop. That's all you need to tell him. Dale's Body Shop in Blue Springs, taking care of customers, and he's taking care of you. So we talked about the local races a little bit. The amendments were also on the ballot in Missouri. You mentioned the abortion ban overturned, Amendment 3, which restores abortion rights in the state. Very disappointed in that because it's not reasonable. Okay, we had the young lady on last time who wrote the books and all that, and she was a survivor of abortion. And I mentioned on the podcast last week that if my father had his way, I would have been aborted. It was my 19-year-old mother that stood up to him and said, no, I'm having this baby.
Yeah.
So I'm here because of my mother and her objections. And my objections to this amendment is that there were no limits on it. You can do whatever you want to do all the way to full term, and in my mind, that's wrong. I mean, there's a big gap and a big gulf, and I know that you're on the side of no abortion ever for any reason whatsoever, right?
Yeah, I would
Pretty
say
close.
so.
Yeah. So I'm more of the exceptions that we talk about, the 3 exceptions, and as early as possible. How long do you need to be pregnant before you make this decision? This amendment basically wipes all that away. You could walk in at 9 months and say, don't want it, take it.
Right.
And that's wrong.
And it's also super vague, the language of the amendment. That was the really troubling thing about it, was that it potentially opens the door for a bunch of other things like gender transitions for minors and other troubling things like that. So it's a definite blow in Missouri. We were personally involved in trying to advocate for that not passing, and both of us were. And so, we just have to move forward and try and educate people as best as possible and try and spread the word about the pro-life message.
Yeah.
And, just keep fighting. We got to keep fighting.
What will the Democrats do next time? Because they tried to scare the hell out of everybody. I can't wait for the next Republican candidate to run in 2028 because once you've called, Trump Hitler and a Nazi and all that, and they ran on abortion, they said Republicans will take away your right to kill your baby. If you don't have that anymore, what are you going to go with?
I think it's going to be like Godzilla. You know how they had Godzilla and then they Godzilla was big and bad, so they had to come up with like a bigger and badder thing.
Yeah.
So it's like Mecha Godzilla or they had to come up with different versions of Godzilla. So we'll have like Mecha King Hitler next time
Online,
instead of just regular Hitler.
Online gambling passes very narrowly in Missouri. We talked about that at the podcast last week. So now on par with the state of Kansas once they get the mechanisms in place for that. And they have constitutional restrictions that send the money to education. So I think that's a good thing out of this. And, of course, from a radio perspective, it means we'll get more advertising revenue because I'm all about business. And you know what? If people are going to gamble, what the hell's the difference between, running across State Line Road to gamble online or having it available in the state of Missouri? So a very narrow margin for that, but it did pass. And the thing that breaks my heart that has to be an amendment in Missouri is we only allow American citizens the right to vote. That seems like it's a no-brainer. It doesn't seem like it would need to be in the Constitution of Missouri, but now it is.
Yep. That one was like 75-25 or something like that.
Minimum wage is the minimum wage amendment went into effect, and I was against that because, like you said, why there? Why not $50 an hour? Why not $100 an hour? How about you get the best education you can, do the best job you can, and let the market take care of it?
Yep. There was other things there in there too about guaranteed certain this and that for employees. I forget exactly what the language was, but
yeah. Well, I voted no on it, but it passed anyway. Okay, Medicare Simplified KC, because even though Donald Trump is going to be there, he can't fix everything in 4 years, and Medicare is a mess, and it's changing too. That is why Kirk Doris I think he's going to be on the podcast next week because there are major changes coming to Medicare that you need to know about. This company takes the difficult and makes it simple for your personal situation. So if you or a family member is closing in on 65, you need to get with these people. Kirk Doris and Lori Hawker, they're at MedicareSimplifiedKC.com. You can reach them on the phone at 816-701-6661. If you can't come to them, they will come to you. This is important for your I used to say elderly relatives, but I'm 61 now.
Careful.
Yeah, and I talked to Kirk about that, and I said, I just turned 61, so I guess it's 4 years before I'm going to come see you. And he goes, don't rush it. Don't rush it. So, but there are big changes for those who are dealing with Medicare, and these are the folks that are going to get it done for you. Royal Roofing and Solar, of course, they're a big part of this podcast, have been for a long time. Austin Watterson's company, Mike Dale works with him. And you know what? Even though we're going to get a Republican president and maybe this goofy move to wind and solar being the only things that power our country, maybe that's going to go away. But isn't it nice that you could put solar panels on your home and turn it into its own energy generation unit for your home?
Yep.
That'd be great. Reach out to these folks and talk to them. Definitely if you need a roof. They did the roof at my house. Royal Roofing and Solar, and I'm going to need your help with that. Can you give me the websites?
Yeah, so I think Royal Contracting KC still redirects, but it's showing now as roofedbyroyal.com. So I think they just bought a new domain. So, but that one website will have everything. It'll have all the information about solar, about roofing, solar frequently asked questions.
Yeah.
And we had Mike Dale on before, and he did a really good job, I thought, about explaining some of the common questions that people have about solar and just showing that the company is they're not just trying to get your money. They want to be honest with you about the process and about whether it's going to work for you or not, about the cost-benefit analysis, because it is an upfront cost. So if you're looking to sell your house in 3 to 5 years, it might not make as much sense as if you're going to keep your house long term. You have a lot of sunshine coming down and you're going to be in your house for a long time. It could really save you a lot of money in the long run. So, but I thought he did a very good job of explaining that. And, they will be transparent with you. They'll be honest about whether this is going to work for you or not, how you can pay for it, and all that. So,
well, here's a tip for me, and I think a lot of consumers in this country, and this is a closed circuit to my friends on the left side of the aisle. Don't come at me and say, you've got to do this or you're destroying the planet. Sell me on the positive side, right? If you're going to change all my light bulbs, sell me on the fact that light bulb lasts me 8 years now.
Right.
I like that. Okay? Don't say, if you don't put this light bulb in, we're going to come and give you a ticket. You're killing the planet. I mean, stop that bullshit. I mean, sell me on the benefits of something, and then you got my attention, and that's why Mike Dale, I think, does a great job with solar at Royal Roofing and Solar. Okay, that might have been a lesson for the heritage media because, man, they were wringing their hands. I caught some of it in clips this morning, and some of them, Stephanopoulos this morning was near tears, and
great.
I didn't get to see Martha Raddatz because Martha Raddatz kind of talks like this anyway. She does.
Yeah.
It's like, God damn, give her a tissue or something for crying out loud.
I saw a couple clips last night of Van Jones, and then after other people had called it, Fox News had called it, a few other people, I don't have CNN, unfortunately, or else I would have been watching that, but I do have NBC just through the antenna.
Yeah.
So I put NBC on and was just, just like watching obsessively.
Well, again, I think The View's probably going to get the biggest number they've ever had today because people want to tune in and probably just laugh at them and make fun of them. But what is the lesson for the heritage media in all this? We talked about this, I think, last time or the time before on the podcast because they were so in on defeating Donald Trump, right? Yeah. Not Walter Cronkite, not just doing the news and letting the chips fall where they may. Walter Cronkite was a liberal guy, but you didn't know it by watching the CBS Evening News. These guys were all in, and they were invested in defeating Donald Trump. And Donald Trump not only wins the Electoral College, but he's going to win the popular vote. So what does that say to heritage media? To me, it says you're no longer relevant.
Yeah. Yeah, they're toast. They're completely toast. I mean, the money is still there for them in a lot of ways because not all of the advertisers have jumped ship, but I hope that this election and the continued decline of trust in the legacy media will start to dry up the advertising for some of these news stations as well, because that's what's really going to tank them. They still have the money to spend on the production and the talent and all these other things. But once that starts to dry up, it's over for them. And you mentioned this earlier, too. Just one more thing. You had mentioned, the podcasting thing. And it's so true. I mean, it was true to a certain extent in 2016. I think Twitter and social media was like the big thing in 2016 that helped Trump get over the line and caused the upset against Hillary Clinton. But in this election in 2024, it was non-traditional media. It was new media that won him the election. It was getting the vote, the message out to the masses. He went on Joe Rogan. That was like 2 weeks ago. I think it's got 50 million views on YouTube. That's just on YouTube. That's not including Spotify. That's not including X, formerly Twitter, which it's all on all those platforms. He went on other podcasts. He went on Theo Von. He went on like comedian podcasts. JD Vance was all over the place doing podcasts. And, it's refreshing to see because that's like where it becomes more than policy. I watched that Rogan interview with Trump, and it wasn't like particularly exciting. They didn't break any major stories or anything. But what stood out to me is that this is like a real guy. He could sit and hold a conversation for 3 hours and just shoot the shit. Kamala Harris could never do that. And I think that resonated with people. They see that and they realize that these are just real people who have like real emotions and real lives outside of politics, and that's something that you don't get in a 5-minute media hit on Fox News where you just repeat your talking points and that's all the time you have and then you move on to the next thing. That is just totally dead, and I couldn't be happier about it. Yeah.
Well, we'll see where they go from here. And, I was thinking for a while that Kamala might, end up on The View. I worry about her. She's going to need a job, on January 20th. But I don't think she could do The View. She can't do it. And I said early on in the Biden presidency, just watching her and how she dealt with people and how she spoke, she's the stupidest person to ever be vice president of the United States. And it was revealed in this campaign.
Yep.
And Joe Biden, he's probably at the White House going, I beat him once, I could have beat him again. Mm-hmm. He probably thinks that. Don't you think? Don't you think in the back of his mind, he's like smiling a little bit that she got her ass handed to her?
Yeah, I mean, that's if he even knows what's going on.
Yeah,
but
probably not.
But yeah. And like I said before, I mean, we will not be dunking on the American people because we need to build a coalition and unity, but we will be dunking on the media. And I look forward to our audio situation is a little jacked up today. It's a patch job, but next week especially given some time for the election to set in, for us to all process it and to let it breathe and to start thinking about the future and the 47th presidency of Donald Trump. I look forward to spending a significant amount of time dunking on the media next week.
Well, with the exception of COVID, I hope it's kind of like his 45th presidency, because that was pretty good for a while.
Yep.
Hey, we want to thank Bob Watson, State Farm Insurance, for being part of the podcast, 816-229-7878. You can find Bob in his office there at 712 West Main Street in Blue Springs, but he serves both Kansas and Missouri, and he'd love to give you a rate quote. And when you bundle, you can save. And as American business comes back to life and the wokeness seeps away because of the failed policies of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, America's going to wake up again. And you might go buy that new car. You might go buy that new house. Make sure you've got insurance. Bundle and save with State Farm, 816-229-7878. Our friend Bob Watson, who's been a State Farm agent for 50 years. Before we go, I wanted to leave you with this, because we are going to dump on the media next week, because we're going to have all of their tears from today and through the weekend, all the big names that you know. But Oprah Winfrey is somebody who stayed above the fray until she didn't. She got in at the last minute for Kamala Harris, and she gave a speech, and because our audio is a little wonky, we can't bring it to you today, but she went on stage, and she said, we have to show up, because if we don't show up and cast our vote, this may be the last time you can ever vote in the history of the United States. Mm-hmm. How asinine is that?
Yeah, it's pretty. There's no evidence to support that.
I was going to joke about some stuff like, when you give the Heil Hitler salute, do you use the left hand, the right hand? Because I'm not really sure on that. Which uniform do I wear? Where does the swastika go? Just to kind of lean into what they said about what was going to happen if Trump won. But I'm not going to do that.
I think it's the right hand, by the way.
Is it the right hand?
I think so. Yeah.
Because I'm left-handed, so of course it's I'm a handicapped guy to begin with.
If you're left-handed, that means you can't possibly be a Nazi, right? That's how that works.
I think that's true, because you get it backwards. Yeah. Anyway, we're not going to do that, because what's going to happen here is what Joe Biden promised when he gave that inaugural address that launched our podcast. He said that normal was going to come back to this country, and we went in an abnormal direction to the far left. Well, let me tell you, my friends, normal is coming back to the United States of America, and it starts on January 20th, 2025. We've told you all the things that were going wrong, and we will hold Donald Trump's feet to the fire about things that go wrong in the future and hopefully help guide him in his administration. But it's going to be a much better day. January 20th, 2025 will be here before you know it. We'll be here to bring it all to you. Until next week, this is Dale Carter's America.
The views expressed on Dale Carter's America are Dale's and Kurt Wheeler's. They do not necessarily reflect the views of KFKF or Steel City Media. Comments can be sent to dalecartersamerica@gmail.com. Check back for weekly episodes. Subscribe, spread the word, and give us a 5-star review. Thanks for being a part of Dale Carter's America.